Here we are back for our last talk of the day, which is last not least. Actually, it's one of my favorite, if not the favorite one, and that's why I voluntarily put it at the end because usually, the dessert come at the end, right? And I was really looking for this talk. So this come from two friends of us, Michele and Giuseppe. They are both heavily experts and involved in the area of code auditing and penetration testing and offensive research. I've been meeting them since many years to conference worldwide, so I'm pretty happy that they decide to submit to No Hat and to present one of our their latest research and work. So you might know Michele, that goes under the name of Antisnatcher as well. He has been one of the main developer of the Beef Core framework, and you might know him also for WorkOn, which is a private and offensive conference he runs in Warsaw, where he lives since a few years. And Giuseppe for a tool called BetterCap. And yeah, and what I want to say more. Yeah, Giuseppe works as security consultant for Ford Consult, and they will be co-presenting with Michele on the next presentation. So 3, 2, 1, let's go with that.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this session about as it will be Sampei for you too. This is a journey into post-phishing automation, and together with Michele, we are going to present you some updates in this field of phishing and automating all the post exploitation phases. My name is Giuseppe Trotta. I am a security consultant at NCC Group, and in my spare time, I'm also maintaining the repository in the Murena team and the Murena, and mostly I'm involved in security.
Hello, my name is Michele Orru, also known as Antisnatcher. I'm part of Murena team with Giuseppe, and I'm a freelance penetration tester, teamer, and vulnerability researcher. So, about the title, for those of you who were wondering, it's a mix of Sampei, which is a famous old school Japanese fishing movie, and another famous, but this time Italian, trash movie called Amici Miei with Ugo Tognazzi. That he was basically a con man, a social engineer, but physically speaking, and that's why we wanted to compare the two, because basically phishing operation sometimes are perceived as super cazzole, so like, you know, things that have partial truths but are confusing the victim in a way that the victim do what you want. So where we left after our last talk that before COVID, it was in 2019 in Amsterdam. We will discuss Murena, the current state of the reverse proxy. We will discuss the new Necro browser written in Node.js. And we will see two live demos, actually recorded demos, but demos of GitHub and Office 365 Enterprise automation. A couple of pointers to previous research that was done by us. Actually, in 2018, myself and Marcus Verviers, the owner of X41, a German company, we did some research and we bypassed U2F via web USB on certain models of YubiKeys. This led eventually to a major Chrome upgrade where some certain models of USB sticks were blacklisted. So this attack was not working anymore, and it's an interesting story. You can see the recording. Then the year later, so 1 year ago, with Giuseppe, we released the first versions of the tools that we are going to speak about now, Murena and Necro browser. And
yes, so from the last year, what changed basically? And last time, as Michele was mentioning, we presented Murena and Necro browser at the Hack in the Box in Amsterdam. And we were claiming that two-factor authentication is already demystified, and most of the authentication remains still single factor. And basically what changed since last time is nothing almost, and everything is still like that. And we are seeing some updates in the U2F, but it's still super slow. So the market is starting to apply some changes, but it's gonna be very slow, and I guess, and we guess, this will take at least 2-3 years.
And some of the consideration that some businesses have when applying U2F to, for example, more than 1,000 users is sometimes also the cost of the hardware keys, right? Because without
Yes.
mentioning providers and the products, but it's usually about $20, $30, $40 per key, depending on the model. So if you start to have like 10,000 users, 10,000 keys, it starts to be like not trivial cost for some business.
As the state of the art, as usual, Google is the only one that is one step beyond, if we talk about web as well. And in this screenshot, you can see that we are using morena.evil as a phishing domain. And in the moment you reach the login portal, so you can still phish username and password, but then before letting you to proceed, Google is blocking you because they realize that there is something wrong in the user agent. And what are they doing in background is they are injecting some special JavaScript obfuscated that requires some extra effort from the phisher. And this is just reducing drastically the way you can phish Google accounts, or actually consumer Google accounts, easily. And in fact, if you try to use Morena or any other phishing tools like EvilGeneX, for example, to Google account, this is something that you are gonna face. So Google is really helping their consumers to be safe from these phishing attempts. However, if you are not a consumer account, but you are an enterprise, this kind of check is not applied by Google. So what happens is that you can still phish all the employees and all the companies that are relying on Google services, but are not considered a consumer but enterprise account. In this screenshot, you can see the domain. This is my private email account. And as you can see, the domain is an enterprise domain, but it is managed by Google. And for this kind of employees, for this kind of companies and services, Google at the moment is not providing the phishing protection. So basically, you can still phish Google when it is when Google is managing enterprise accounts. Always in terms of the state of the art, recently we identified this document by the FBI that it was mentioning Morena and Necro browser that were presented last year as trending tools for the automating phishing scheme. So basically, even the FBI is acknowledging that these risks that are coming more and more, so it's trying to raise the bar of the security operations.
Yeah, just a note about this. Of course, what we do is we release for free for people that do red teaming. We don't believe much in the idea of keeping everything private. Of course, everyone has a private stash of things, but that's not the point. The point is to collaborate and to give tools to the people, and then of course these tools probably will help raising the bar on the defense side.
And next one, always talking about the state of the art. Microsoft is doing something pretty interesting that is called Windows Hello, and basically the Windows Hello is their approach to the passwordless. So we are evolving in a way that password won't be anymore used in the near future. And what is called passwordless is exactly what Windows Hello is implementing, where basically instead of authenticating with username and password, what will you provide is like your face or your fingerprint and any other USB token like YubiKey and stuff like this. So this will be a real challenge from our attacking perspective, because this kind of mechanism won't be easily to be phished, so almost impossible. So this is going to be the evolution that we are going to face in the near future. For those of you who don't know what Morena is, basically Morena is a man-in-the-middle tool for HTTP and HTTPS communication, nothing less, nothing more. And how does it work? Basically, when you visit a phishing website, what happens is that you land on the phishing, and in the background, there is some application managing this phishing page. But what if instead of writing from scratch the application, if you run a man-in-the-middle tool like Morena that is simply proxying your communication to the real one? So if we check this diagram now, just to give you a brief idea, on the left, we have the fish at the top left. That is the victim. That is just landing on the phishing website, in this case, github.co, where the U is a D, and instead of com, there is a co. So this can be a normal phishing website. So instead of landing on the github.com, you go to the github.co. And what happens is that github.co is just taking the request from the victim and forwarding to the real GitHub, just changing something in the request, but not to inject extra stuff, but just to make it work the flow. So whenever you ask something to the phishing website, the phishing will send to the real one, and all the responses will come to the Morena, that is the phishing manager, and then back to the victim. Doing this approach, what happens is that you are the man in the middle, and being the man in the middle, you are able to intercept anything that is coming, because you can see all the communication, you can manipulate, but you can also read. And from a Fisher perspective, what do we need is, we need credential, because we can use and reuse somewhere else, but also we need cookies, session cookies, because what do we want to do with these cookies? To impersonate the victim. What is working behind Morena is that all the requests that are coming through back and forth the Morena are just encoded in subdomains. So for example, here, as you can see, all the subdomains of the phishing domain, that is github.com in this case, you will see that www7 is mapped to YouTube. Why this? Because one thing is to intercept only requests to Google, to github.com. And if you only phish one domain, then it might be that victim is connecting to another domain and sending a different referrer, for example. And then you can be easily detected, or the phishing might fail. What changed since last time we presented Morena? The core of Morena was quite strong. It is actually quite strong. And we didn't change much, because it is working as expected, and doesn't have much to be modified. It's quite customizable. But we improved Morena in 3 main points, actually. The first is regarding the victim tracking, because we are introducing different way to track victims. For example, if they are landing from a URL or from an email and other operation. We are integrating better Morena with the new network browser, so with new profiles and new approaches. And also the configuration management, it is slightly changed. And what we introduced as a new feature is the session persistence. So in the past, when you run Morena, all is logged and maintained in memory. And then if the application is stopped, then you lose everything. What we are doing now is managing everything and coordinating and centralizing in Redis database. So we can even restore a session, or we can even replay and see what happened with all the logs and all the analysis. So we can even do some kind of post-mortem analysis. This is also useful if we want to analyze, for example, bots, or for example, other other security solution that are trying to visit your Murena instance to understand if you are something malicious or not. So logging everything, what can we do is we can see the IP addresses, the user agent, and then we can make all the analysis to see what is good, what is bad, and in the end also implement our blacklisting approach to say, okay, all the IP addresses coming from these areas are something that are for defense purposes, so better redirect to something that is working, or this is something malicious and stuff like this. So these are the main updates.
Okay, this was about Murena. So regarding Necrobrowser, the approach was a bit different. So what is Necrobrowser, first of all? It's basically the abuse of a functional testing tool for offensive purposes. So we use Puppeteer, which is a very famous testing tool in Node.js that instruments Chrome via the Chrome debugging protocol, which is the same protocol that runs behind the hood when you use the JavaScript console in a Chrome instance. The big difference from last year is that we rewritten from scratch Necrobrowser as its own microservice that exposes a RESTful API and that allows you to manage Puppeteer in a cluster in Node.js, because Puppeteer is reliable, and since this was in Node.js, there was no reason to actually wrap this around Go. Now Necrobrowser is really reliable also in headless mode thanks to Puppeteer. And also it's running fine also on FreeBSD, even if there is no official support for Puppeteer on FreeBSD. So again, we choose Puppeteer because it's super stable, reliable, documented, and it's made by Google. There is an alternative library that we might investigate in the future that is called Playwright, which are actually the guys, ex-developers from Puppeteer that went from Google to Microsoft. And apparently they are developing something similar that allows you to instrument also Edge, but we are not supporting this now. We are just focusing on Puppeteer. Interesting point is that the code of Puppeteer, when you call Puppeteer scripts to automate your scraping and other activities, you are writing ES6, so promises, you have async, await, and the code is much more clean, without the callback mayhem. Also, the Node library ecosystem, although in some cases was insecure and etc., there were issues with it. To be honest, if you select the libraries carefully and you read the code, you can find some really good gems. Two of these gems that we are using as dependencies, and we modify them a bit to adapt them to our needs, are Puppeteer Stealth and Puppeteer Cluster. Puppeteer Stealth allows us to mock the instrumented Chrome browser, even in headless mode, in a way that the BOM, so the browser object model, will have all the all the objects that are present in a GUI version of Chrome, but are not present by default in an headless version. So the headless version is mocked completely to simulate the GUI one. And in general, also the GUI version, even if you start to customize it with an application profile, you can customize it further, and you have full control of what will be the BOM in production. The second library that we use and customize a little bit is called Puppeteer Cluster. It implements its own queuing system with a pool size and allows you to spawn multiple versions of Chrome in incognito mode and load the tasks that you define in Puppeteer scripts in dedicated contexts. In this way, if a task fails, it's not going to affect the others. And also, all the tasks are are basically sandboxed in their own Chrome instance for security reasons as well. If you remember the previous diagram that we showed for Murena, this is similar. So if you remember, the victim is fished into Murena. Now Murena, as Giuseppe was pointing out, is a reverse proxy, so has a full state of what's going on in terms of sessions. As soon as some sessions are collected, depending on the configuration that you set up on Necrobrowser, Necrobrowser will spawn accordingly segregated instances of Chrome to do actions on the user's behalf, hijacking his web session. And let's jump to a couple of demos.
Yes, the first one that we are gonna see now is as a tradition related to GitHub. In terms of Murena, the only change that we introduced is that you have to mention in the configuration file that once you hook a victim in GitHub, Necro browser needs some kind of a configuration with the instruction that you want Necro browser to do. And then what it's doing in this case, in the task, you can see there is plant and dump, where basically we provide some parameters. The first is related to the session, and then the URLs that we want to screenshot, some keywords to search in the repositories, and the SSH key to inject as a vector. Yes, this is the long, the SSH key. And then we have also credentials and cookies. Automatically, Murena will update this configuration file with the credentials that are harvested in during the phishing campaign.
So, jumping to the video, we are going to see an example of a full reverse proxy configuration of Murena against a user that is on GitHub with SMS 2FA. And in terms of post-phishing automation, as soon as we have the victim session, we are going to screenshot the pages and do the following task that Giuseppe just pointed out. So we are starting the Necro browser. Necro browser is on microservice, so you can start it wherever. It's important that, as we will cover later, you do a tunnel between the two machines, but we cover that later. As you can see, we landed on githbb.co, which is our reverse proxy setting on Murena. We already collected over here the credentials, and the victim received on her phone the 2FA code. She's submitting it. Of course, everything is proxied, so the connections to send to fulfill the 2FA are also fulfilled by Murena. Now, the Necro browser session is already being instrumented, as you can see. So we hijacked it, all the cookies, we added the key, screenshotted the key page, and now we are iterating through all the repositories, private and public ones, downloading the master branches as zip files, and to confirm that you had everything done in like 30 seconds, if not less. We are going to check the extrusion directory and zip one of these master branches that we just downloaded automatically with Puppeteer, with Necro browser, and we just found, for example, some keys, development keys that could help in our red team.
Yes. What is also interesting is that for the sake of clearness of this demo, we use the not headless mode, so we were able to see the screen. The screen. But usually, when you do this kind of operation, you don't need to see the screen. It's just fully automated.
Yes.
And the next demo is about the Office 365. So we move to some more corporate environment. And this is interesting because it's something quite common when you do red teaming or advanced phishing campaigns, because the point here, and here we see more the value of the post-phishing, is that once you have phishing credential, no? In a normal phishing campaign, you phish a user, you have the credential. Maybe you also manage to have the access with these credentials. But what happens if you have 10, 20, 100 victims? How do you automate these spaces? How do you see and search within Outlook or SharePoints, or how, for example, from one victim you can scrape and extrude more users? So considering the Office 365 is something that is more and more used at the moment, and all the companies are just migrating to the cloud, everything like Outlook, People, SharePoint, Teams is with this single sign-on. So as soon as we manage to phish a single user and we obtain a single session, the potential of this post-exploitation is insanely big. So in this demo, what we're going to see is a login with Microsoft Online Phishing, and then from there we move laterally to extrude some information. Regarding Morena, the configuration is pretty similar to the previous one, with the only exception that you can see here in the name, that we have two tasks. So basically what you can instruct from Morena is, okay, once you instrument this session via Necro browser, you have to do two operations. The first one is extrude all the emails that match with my keywords. And the second one is write also an email. And in fact, below you can see the write email configuration where you send the to, the subject, and the data. This is perfect as advanced phishing.
So again, like the previous video, we start the two microservices, the Necro browser and Morena. In this case, the phishing domain is called protection-outlook.com. Protection.outlook.com is actually one of the real domains, but as usually it happens, you use dash to concatenate subdomains. Now, the victim is authenticating. We capture in real time the credentials that can be always useful for other tasks, or if you are laterally moving already in the AD, you can already use it. 2FA authentication with SMS. In this case, the Necro browser instrumentation will trigger as soon as the victim goes to the Outlook application. So as soon as she clicks on the Outlook app, you will see this browser disappearing and two new ones appearing, which are the Necro browser instrumented ones, which you can also see from the Chrome is being controlled by automated test software string below the URL bar. So on the left, we trigger the task to search for the inbox for keywords and scrape the email content. And in parallel, we are writing to Frederick, another admin user in the same organization, a testing email in this case, but you can attach arbitrary file and basically move laterally, phishing-wise, being very stealthy, and also in theory, not in theory, something that we didn't see in this video is that we can, of course, delete from the sent the directory, the email that we just sent for security reason. So as you can see here, the email dump worked. Meanwhile, okay, now continuing our discussion, going to more advanced operations. So what we saw now were quite standard, but also a little bit advanced already phishing campaigns with some good post automation. But in terms of deployments, you might encounter targets during your teaming operation or phishing simulation that will combine, will have like a context between the session and the source IP and the browser fingerprint and the canvas and the WebGL output from JavaScript and a lot of other factors that are combined to the session and then are checked by the application in a way that you cannot easily hijack, even if you steal the cookies. A good workaround to this problem that you also didn't see in the video but was already applied was it is using a VPN software like WireGuard to create a tunnel between Necro browser and Morena. So if Morena, according to the previous example, was running on githvb.co, on Morena here we would have also an UDP server with WireGuard, and Necro browser would be a VPN client and would connect directly to Morena. Another example that, for example, LinkedIn, as far as we remember, was using back in the days, and this is a good thing from them, is how to fix a situation where the application is fingerprinting the browser object model. So in this case, since you are also in the middle, you are not in the middle from a JavaScript point of view yet, but we are working on injecting pieces of JavaScript that then will fingerprint fully the browser object model that then can be communicated to Necro browser, and Necro browser can then use Puppeteer plugin to emulate exactly Chrome or Firefox exactly in the same way that the browser, the victim browser, is configured and behaved. More on Murena, advanced Murena operation, sometimes targets that employ security products and other security measures that make your life as a fisherman more difficult. Some of the things that this product's solution might do are, for example, check the age and reputation of the phishing domain that you are using. Domain DNS and reverse DNS entries could be checked against a database of known or bad, entries, IP reputation, domain similarity with the monitor domains. For example, doing a red teaming against a bank or other big organizations like that, Let's Encrypt might not be the best option in some cases. So in all these kind of cases where you have like a blue team acting against you, or you have like a aggressive traffic policy that might block traffic from new IP addresses or domain with low reputation. What is a good idea to use is actually CloudFront or Azure, so fronting with CDN networks.
Yes, because the idea here is to abuse the trust that we have in the CDN domains. And basically, all the corporate, they trust the CDN because otherwise you cannot use anything, almost anything. And in this case, for example, the demo is with the screenshot is GitHub that is reached by a phishing website that is hosted in a CDN in Azure.
For the future, well, I mean, we have a lot of plans, and given, especially during these COVID times, so more necrobrowser templates for sure, easy to say and to do. There might be a chance that there will be a official Puppeteer FreeBSD port, so I might be able to work on that. There could be also some additional work with some other friend that wanted to give us support, and he already has some Lambda prototype working where Puppeteer respond over Lambda.
And this is perfect if you want to scale a lot and automate this kind of operation like the Necro browser, because as soon as you have something to automate, you just trigger this Lambda, and then you might have 10,000 victims, and it will work normally as expected. Paguro is going to be another tool that we're going to add to the Murena team, and is about what we mentioned before, the browser object model is a tool that we use to dump the bomb and to analyze also the browser and the clients to fingerprint. And this is going to be an interesting addition.
This is it for us. Let's now do the live question and answers, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hey, guys.
Hi. Or ciao.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
All good.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you also for this conference.
Thanks for the conference. Yes, it was great to have it during this lockdown times.
Yeah, at least there is something to challenge for, right? I mean, also to prepare, and but yeah, it was not easy to set up such conference. So initially, as you know, guys, we thought to bring everybody down to Italy, but we went for live. But I guess it was a great opportunity to have a reach with people that not necessarily are willing to travel to Italy. So I will give some stats during the closing keynote, closing session. But we had a lot of viewers from. We have over 30 different countries, for example, 30 different nationalities of people participating, which is something usually you don't get if you run like a conference physically, because you need to have people coming over. So cool. The talk was, I really like it a lot, actually, because I really like when it's practical and you really go to the point. So, and we even have different questions here. I'm going to read some of these to you guys. So the first one is, if you plan to integrate the tool with a social engineering toolkit with SET or something along those lines for more automation?
I guess I can reply here, Michele. No, because I'm not an expert of set, but generally speaking, the concept behind set is to clone the target website. While here, the concept of Morena is to avoid the part of the manual cloning pages, links, and copying stuff. You are just there, the man in the middle. So what you have to do is just customize the config, saying, okay, this is the target, this is the phishing website, and then it's going to be fully automated. And this is something that you can do only if you implement a reverse proxy solution that is the real evolution in terms of phishing, because the concept up to a couple of years ago was, okay, let's clone the web page and then make sure that it's the same and the CSS doesn't change. And if you click here and you don't want, maybe you need to redirect the victim. So it was quite complex to prepare a phishing campaign. While using a man-in-the-middle solution with this reverse proxy, even if the victim is clicking somewhere else or providing wrong credential, you don't have to worry, because in the end is the real website. So this fully automated solution is saving a lot of time for phishing operation. So why going back to something that is manual? So I guess we're gonna stay standalone. The only option.
Yeah, go on.
Just one thing. The only thing that is in the roadmap is instead integrating Morena in Bettercup, because Bettercup is the de facto man-in-the-middle tool. So it would be perfect if you can have Morena to spin a runtime when you are doing some man-in-the-middle operation, for example, inside intranet, where you want to host a phishing website that is only internal, so there's no chance to reach the internet. Then you can use Bettercup together with Morena. So that's the future.
We need to ping our friend Simone Margaritelli for this.
Good luck with that.
To think.
Will be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess the question was, around set, basically, actually, it's not much integrated into set, but, it's more a complementing set, because set, it's more like an old technology where you're going to clone a website, while actually you have a reverse proxy that does dynamically. So it's basically like an alternative and more sophisticated or modern like approach.
Also
better solution.
Set is basically a Python script that allows you to also send emails and covers this part, which we don't cover in Morena. Morena is just for performing the fish. Then how you deliver the link to that is up to you. Since there are plenty of phishing frameworks already out, like GoFish and others that plenty of people use successfully, we didn't want to reinvent another one, at least for the moment. We have our own private tool chain that we don't release for the moment for this.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So again, talking of tools, you show how you can use Necro browser to basically extend what Morena does, because at the point when you take over basically the account, then you can automate like the dumping of credential. And so someone is asking if you can use such tool in conjunction with other attack vectors like cross-scripting. So you steal, for example, the cookie of a user, and then at that point you log automatically into his session and collect private information.
Yes, the idea of XSS is a little bit different, though. But yes, you can use Necro browser to potentially find XSS, like how to create a puppeteer script that goes in n pages and submits n get or n post request with your XSS payloads, and you can verify that the XSS really triggers. This is actually what Burp Proxy is doing from 1 or 2 years, because they are embedding a Chrome headless browser to verify that the XSS is really triggered, and you don't just grab for the string in a response. So from that point of view, you can use Necro browser. In terms of exploitation, it's a little bit different.
Well,
also generally with XSS, you don't have cookies access if the cookies are HTTP only, so it's a bit different. You want to add something, Giuseppe?
Yeah, there is this interesting scenario. First of all, Morena and Necro browser, they are standalone. They can cooperate, but they are standalone. And the way Morena is cooperating with Necro browser is because Necro browser is exposing a RESTful API. So if you want to exploit an XSS, basically what you could do is a XHR request, sending the cookies and making a post request to the Necro browser API. And in that way, you can use Necro browser to automate this kind of session.
The cookies are not HTTP only. That's what I said. But
yeah. I mean, if you manage to steal the cookies in the way that you think they are fine, yes.
Yes, when someone noticed that you got, from your presentation, of course, that you got even an hack from an FBI report, which is pretty cool, to be mentioned as
non hanno ancora bussato alla porta.
a tool that made the difference. So he's asking if you are willing to share a similar success story with the audience, like if you're aware of, someone else using the tool, or if you are already using the tool in your daily job for red teaming operation or something like that. So it's more like on the adoption of the tool in a real world.
Without doing names, some of the largest pen testing companies, without making names, because we cannot.
Of course.
They are already using Murena mostly because of the licensing. Since we license our stuff BSD 3 close, for a company, it's easy to use this also during commercial engagements. So we are not limited by other licensing schemes. So yes, Giuseppe can confirm more, but yes, as far as we know, there are a few big companies that use Murena most of the time for phishing. And reading in the interwebs, you can find configurations in plenty of languages. So I guess people, as the FBI noticed, are also using these tools for whatever reason, without a contract, without a judge order, or whatever, you name it. But that's not, something that we can control. It can be said also for Metasploit and a lot of other tools that made history, Nmap. So in general, going back to this, we confirm that our tools are used in real life engagements, red teamings or not, and you can have a look and try them yourself against targets that you can own, of course.
Yeah, I guess that if you are doing red teaming and you want to have some successful campaign, you must use a tool like this, because the way to mess up the phishing campaign can be several. So you don't even want to consider this part of the creating website and performing man in the middle, also bypassing the two-factor authentication mechanism. So this is very useful, and we use in my company every day this stuff, but I have several friends around that they use this. So it's quite used, but public stories to share, we don't have.
Not yet. Okay, good.
In fact, one small parenthesis is like, years ago when we started this with Giuseppe, basically a lot of friends where we presented this privately, let's say 2017, they said, do not release, keep it private. So at the end we said, fuck it, let's publish it in a way that everyone can judge and use it. Why keep everything private? That's the only story.
Okay. So this one brings us to the next questions, which is pretty much related, because it seems like you guys are working on this since a few years, and there is probably the plan to move it forward to the next stage where you might want to bring other contributors in the project. So it looks like so far you are probably you are mostly, you guys the main developers behind this tool, but what's your plan for the future? Like, are you looking, for example, to embrace help from the community, like the open source community, and in which form?
Yeah, well, actually, both projects are open source. If you go on GitHub and search for Murena team, or generally Murena Necro browser, you can find all the code and even how to contribute. So just open a new branch, create your pull request, and then we will merge it. So anybody is welcome to contribute. So
yeah, in
no
general,
problem.
specifically on macro browser, which is probably easier to contribute rather than a reverse proxy like Murena. If for people that, for example, do a lot of functional testing and they use like, you know, Puppeteer or CSS selectors and XPath selectors to query their HTMLs. If you are good at that and you already are into scraping or you want to get into scraping, it's really good if you can help us with Puppeteer tasks aimed at automating, for example, Google, automating Atlassian, automating other common portals that are used and we find in day-to-day engagements. And then, of course, this is public and everyone can use, and then eventually the provider will implement some measures and we bypass those measures, and this is the usual cat and mouse game. If you want to help us with that, it would be great.
Yeah, so that's even closer to our last questions, which goes exactly in this direction. So there is Giovanni asking, what would be the most effective countermeasure for web server from a web server perspective, if there is one, because here it's a long discussion about how to protect against such phishing attacks. But how do you see like the future of protection against phishing?
I mean, apart from go Giuseppe, go. Sorry.
Go, Michele. No. Feel free to reply.
Apart from U2F that we mentioned a lot in the talk, apart from using security keys, if that's not an option, the best way to protect is implementing some time-based JavaScript challenges, or anyway, JavaScript challenges that you do client-side, and you communicate with some handler that you have on the server what's happening. So the client can somehow, I don't know, check the domain inside the blob of polymorphic JavaScript. So also for us it would be difficult to get there and understand what's happening. And in general is what Google is doing, for example, to prevent this in, as Giuseppe pointed out before. So in some client-side checks will minimize some of these attacks are not like the ultimate way of protecting it though.
Okay, great. I guess we are all done with questions. So do you want to add something, say hello to Mama or anything?
No, hello to Mama, but thank you again to you guys for organizing this conference.
It was fun, so I hope we'll have a chance to meet in person sooner than later and have a few beers together. Or
yes, thanks again for the conference, and I wish we could be there in person also to discuss what happened during the COVID time in Bergamo, which was a mess. Even if I'm not living in Italy, you know, I always follow everything politically and not. So
yeah, of course.
It was a bad thing to see that, and the military that at least helped. But yeah, anyway, stay safe, and thanks again for the conference.
No problem. Thanks a lot, and have a nice evening to you. Okay, great.